The footsteps behind the wall. The protagonist, Ariana Cole, moves into her late grandmother's old country home. During her first night, she hears slow footsteps inside the walls. She assumes it's the old structure settling, until she hears someone whisper her name from inside the pantry. The wind always sounded strange in the countryside, too soft, too slow, too deliberate. But on the night Ariana Cole arrived at her grandmother's old house, the wind wasn't what unsettled her. It was the silence. A thick, heavy quiet swallowed the entire property. No cars on the distant road. No barking dogs. No rustling leaves. Just the long, breathless stillness of a place that had been forgotten too long. Ariana stood at the edge of the creaking wooden porch, suitcase still in hand, staring up at the home she had inherited only 2 weeks earlier. The place looked exactly as she remembered from childhood, too big, too dark, and too cold for a single person to live in. The white paint had peeled into curling flakes, the roof sagged slightly on one end, and the windows reflected nothing but the thin slice of moon overhead. She exhaled slowly, fogging the cold night air. "This is temporary," she whispered to herself. "Just a few weeks. Clean it up. Sell it. Leave." Her grandmother's death had been quiet, sudden, and painfully lonely. No funeral crowd. No visitors. No friends. Only a neighbor who found the body and a single will naming Ariana as the sole beneficiary. It should have been comforting. It wasn't. Ariana pushed the door open. The smell hit her first, old wood, dust, and something faintly metallic. The house greeted her with a long hallway stretching into darkness, lit only by her phone's flashlight. She clicked the switch on the wall. Nothing. Power was out. "Great," she muttered. Her footsteps echoed as she walked, the house groaning under every shift of her weight. She headed toward the living room, dropped her bag, and tugged off her jacket. The fireplace sat cold and empty, but it felt like eyes were staring out from it. She ignored that feeling. She grabbed the lantern she brought, struck a match, and lit the wick. A warm orange glow spread across the room. Only then did she feel a little less alone. A little. The first sound. It came after midnight. Ariana had settled on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, scrolling tiredly through old photos on her phone, pictures of her grandmother smiling, young, happy, long before life hardened her. She wanted to remember her like that. Not as the frail woman she saw in her final hospital bed, muttering warnings Ariana couldn't understand. "Ari, never go inside the walls, never." Her grandmother's voice still echoed in her memory. That was when the sound came. Tap. 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 Soft. Light. Not from the floor. Not from the windows. From inside the walls. Ariana froze. She turned off her phone and held her breath. Tap, tap, tap. A slow dragging sound followed, like fingertips brushing across wooden beams. Her heart hammered. "Rats," she whispered, too quickly, too desperately. "Just rats." She forced herself to breathe as she walked down the hallway, lantern flickering. The tapping grew louder with each step. When she reached the dining room, it stopped. Silence. Ariana stood perfectly still. Then, tap. 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 Directly behind the wall beside her. She stumbled backward, gripping the lantern so tight her knuckles turned white. "No," she murmured. No, that's too big for a rat." It sounded like knuckles. Human knuckles. She took another step back. The lantern's light trembled as her hands shook. Then a second sound began, lower, softer. A whisper. A voice. So faint she almost believed she imagined it, until it repeated, clearer. "Ari, nah." Her blood ran cold. She didn't breathe. She didn't move. She just stood frozen as the voice whispered again from inside the wall, dragging each syllable like a dying breath. Ariana. Her name. Her name. No, she whispered, backing away rapidly. Nope. Absolutely not. She rushed down the hallway, nearly tripping over her blanket. She burst into the living room, slammed the door shut, and pressed her back to it. The house was silent again. But Ariana wasn't. Her breath came fast, uneven, trembling. This is just old house acoustics. That's all, she told herself. But she didn't believe it. The picture frame. After several minutes of stillness, Ariana forced herself to calm down. Deep breaths. Slow breathing. Logical thinking. She turned in the lantern's glow, and stopped. Something in the room had moved. A picture frame. It was lying face down on the floor beneath the fireplace mantel, glass cracked, wood splintered. She swallowed hard. She hadn't touched it. The house had been still. Not a single draft. Hands trembling, she lifted it. It was a photo of her grandmother, much younger, maybe late 20s. She was standing on the house's porch, smiling broadly. But something was wrong. A faint figure stood behind her grandmother in the old photograph, a shadowy shape in the doorway, blurred and indistinct. Ariana didn't remember this being there. She stared closer. The figure seemed tall. Slender. Watching. Her chest tightened. As she lowered the frame, an old piece of paper slipped from behind it. Curious, she unfolded it. It was a handwritten note. Her grandmother's handwriting, messy, rushed, unlike her usual careful script. Ari. If you're reading this, it means I failed. The house has secrets I could not keep buried. If you hear footsteps, do not answer. If it speaks your name, do not respond. And whatever you do, never open the hidden door in the basement. Ariana's breath caught. There was a hidden door. Her grandmother had known about the voice? The footsteps? Her pulse thundered in her ears. Okay, this is officially too much. She shoved the note into her pocket, grabbed her coat, and headed toward the front door. She needed air. She needed space. She needed. Crunch. She froze. That sound came from the porch. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Right outside the door. Ariana held her breath. Every muscle tensed. The lantern flickered. The footsteps stopped directly in front of the door. Silence. Then. Tap. 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 Knuckles. Not outside. Not inside. On the door itself. Ariana stumbled backward so fast she hit the edge of the couch. The tapping continued, slow, patient, steady. Who's there? She whispered before she could stop herself. The tapping stopped. A beat of silence. Then a voice, low, raspy, chilling, whispered from the other side of the door. Let me in. Ariana. Her heart nearly burst. She didn't speak. She didn't move. Her entire body locked with terror. Then she noticed something. The peephole in the door. It was dark. Completely dark. As if something was covering it from the outside. Slowly, against every instinct screaming at her, she crept toward the peephole. Hands shaking violently, she leaned forward just enough to look. She peered through. Darkness. Then. An eye stared back at her. A human eye. Wide. Unblinking. Pressed right against the other side of the peephole. Ariana screamed and stumbled back, dropping the lantern. The flame extinguished instantly. Darkness swallowed the room. She scrambled away, panting, heart clawing at her ribs. She squeezed her eyes shut. Only to hear the final whisper, inches from the door. You shouldn't have come back. The locked door in the basement. Ariana did not sleep that night. She sat curled on the living room couch, knees tucked to her chest, the cold air tightening around her like a fist. The lantern lay extinguished on the floor where she dropped it. Her pulse still thudded in her ears, refusing to settle. Every few minutes she glanced at the front door, half expecting another knock, another whisper. But the night stayed silent. Too silent. When the first pale light of dawn filtered through the windows, Ariana finally stood, her legs trembling beneath her. Her throat felt dry, her voice gone. She pulled the curtains aside and peeked out. No footprints. No signs of a visitor. No clue that anyone, or anything, stood outside her door hours before. A chill crawled up her spine. It was real, she whispered to herself. It was real. I know what I heard. But the morning light made the terror feel almost distant. Almost dreamlike. Almost. She walked to the kitchen, splashed cold water on her face, and stared at her reflection. Her eyes were bloodshot. Her hair wild. Her breath shaky. Get it together, she muttered. You're not losing it. Something is wrong with this house. And she needed to understand what. Her grandmother's warning echoed through her mind. Never open the hidden door in the basement. Ariana hadn't planned to go near the basement ever. But the picture frame, the note, the footsteps, the whispering walls, they all pointed to one place. Answers were down there. And she couldn't run from them anymore. She grabbed the lantern, lit it again, and headed toward the basement door. The basement. The wooden basement door groaned loudly as she opened it, releasing a breath of cold, stale air. A thick darkness pooled at the bottom of the stairs like ink. Ariana hesitated. Every instinct screamed turn back. But something stronger, curiosity, fear, obligation, pulled her forward. With a deep breath, she began her descent. Each step creaked. Dust floated in the lantern glow. The final step sank deeper than the others, as though something beneath it had rotted away. The basement was large, cluttered, and suffocatingly cold. Boxes towered in the corners, covered in spiderwebs. Old furniture sat draped in yellowed sheets. Shelves sagged under the weight of forgotten tools and rusted metal. But she didn't care about any of that. She was looking for one thing. A hidden door. She scanned the walls. Nothing stood out at first, just stone and rotting wood paneling. Then, in the far left corner, she saw it. A cluster of old crates had been stacked unnaturally high, blocking an entire section of the wall. The wood looked newer than the rest of the basement, as if someone wanted to hide something. With a racing heart, Ariana set the lantern down and began dragging crates aside. The wood scraped loudly against the concrete floor. Dust choked the air. Her hands shook, but she kept going. 1 crate. 2. 3. Then she froze. Behind the last crate stood a steel door. Thick. Gray. Industrial. Nothing about it matched the rest of the house. It looked like the kind of door you'd see in a bunker, not a farmhouse basement. And chained across it, heavy, rusted, thick chains, were 2 massive locks. Ariana's breath caught in her chest. What the? She stepped closer. The door had scratches, deep gouges, scoring the metal. As if someone on the other side had clawed at it in desperation. Her stomach twisted. That's when she heard it. Knock. A single knock. Soft. From inside. Ariana stumbled backward, grabbing the lantern. Then another knock. Knock, knock, knock. Her breath trembled. She turned to run. Wait. A voice cried out, muffled, from behind the steel. Ariana froze. The voice was weak. Desperate. Human. Please, someone, is someone there? The voice trembled. Her hands shook uncontrollably. Hello, she whispered. The voice gasped in relief. Oh God, oh thank God, please don't go. Ariana stepped closer despite herself, fear and confusion warring inside her. Who are you? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Silence. Then the voice said something that made every hair on Ariana's body rise. I'm I'm trapped. I've been trapped in here for, I don't know how long. Please, please help me. Her heart pounded. Why, she swallowed hard, why are you in there? The voice hesitated. Then. Because your grandmother put me here. The lantern flickered violently. Ariana's mouth went dry. My grandmother, she whispered. That doesn't make sense. She wasn't capable of something like. She locked me in, the voice interrupted. She chained the door. She said it was for my own good, but. The voice cracked. Please. I don't want to die here. Ariana pressed a trembling hand against the cold steel. The person behind the door sounded young. Terrified. Real. Everything inside her screamed to run. To call the police. To leave the chains untouched. But she couldn't walk away from a voice begging for help. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I'll try to get you out. A sob of relief echoed from behind the door. Thank you, thank you. Ariana looked at the padlocks. They were old, rusted, and thick. She had nothing to break them with. Her fear deepened. I need tools, she said, more to herself. Something to cut the chains. There should be something, in the workshop, the voice said weakly. Please hurry. I don't feel well. Ariana nodded even though he couldn't see her. Don't worry. I'll be right back. She turned to climb the basement stairs. The house groaned. The lantern flickered. A cold breeze swept through the basement, even though no windows were open. Then she heard it again. Tap. 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 But this time. It wasn't coming from the steel door. It came from inside the basement walls. Ariana's breath hitched. She turned slowly toward the sound. The tapping moved, skittering along the wall like footsteps. Human footsteps. Following her. Are you still there? The voice behind the door whispered, panic-stricken. Ariana didn't answer. She couldn't. Because the tapping grew louder. Closer. Right behind her. She spun around just in time to see. Nothing. Only darkness and old stone. Her pulse thundered so loud she thought the walls might hear it. Ariana, the voice behind the door whispered suddenly. She froze. She hadn't told him her name. How do you know my name? She asked, voice trembling. A long silence. Then. Your grandmother talked about you. A lot. Another pause. Please. Hurry. Ariana backed away. Something felt wrong. Terribly wrong. She climbed the stairs as fast as she could, stumbling into the hallway above. She slammed the basement door shut and locked it, though she wasn't sure who she was trying to keep out. Or keep in. Her chest heaved as she leaned against the door. What was her grandmother hiding? And who? Or what? Was trapped behind that steel door? The missing person posters. Morning light washed across the kitchen table, but Ariana barely noticed it. Her coffee sat untouched, growing cold as she stared down at the basement key trembling between her fingers. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard it again. That knock. That voice. Her name whispered in the dark. She kept replaying the moment. How did he know her name? Why did her grandmother lock him away? Why were there scratches on the steel door? The house creaked above her, as if reminding her it was listening. Ariana quickly shoved the basement key into her pocket and grabbed her jacket. She needed answers. Not from the house, but from town. The town of Hollow Creek. Her grandmother's house sat on the outskirts of Hollow Creek, a small rural town where everybody seemed to know everybody else, or pretended to. Ariana hadn't been there since she was 10. The streets looked smaller now, aged, tired, washed in shades of gray from years of weather and neglect. Old men sat outside the diner with their newspapers. A group of teens lingered outside the gas station. Everyone seemed to pause as Ariana drove by. As if they recognized her. As if they'd been expecting her. She parked by the general store, the only building that still looked lively, and stepped out into the biting wind. The bell above the door jingled when she entered. A woman at the counter, gray hair in a tight bun, sharp eyes behind thicker glasses, looked up at her. Recognition flickered instantly. "Ariana Cole," the woman said quietly. "You're back." Ariana blinked. You know who I am?" "In a town like this," the woman said, "folks never forget a face tied to that house." Her stomach tightened. "That house." "My grandmother's house," Ariana corrected gently. The woman didn't correct her. She simply stared. "Is something wrong?" Ariana asked. The woman hesitated. Then she nodded toward the back wall of the store. "You should see for yourself." The wall of faces. Ariana walked slowly toward the back wall, and froze. Her breath hitched in her chest. The entire wall was covered in flyers. Old, new, torn, faded. Layered on top of each other like a collage of fear. Missing person posters. Dozens of them. Men. Women. Teenagers. Even a few children. A chill spread through her veins. Why are there so many?" Ariana whispered. The shopkeeper came up behind her. "Hollow Creek has lost a lot of people over the years. Most towns report missing dogs. We report missing folks." Ariana swallowed. "Has anyone been found?" The woman shook her head. "Not one." Ariana scanned the faces, her pulse racing faster and faster, until her eyes landed on a boy with dark blonde hair, blue eyes, and a crooked smile. She stepped closer. His name was printed in bold letters. Evan Rivers. Missing, 3 years. Ariana felt the blood drain from her face. The voice behind the steel door. The young man begging for help. Said his name was Evan. The woman noticed where Ariana was staring. "That boy," she murmured. "Smart kid. Everybody loved him. Disappeared without a trace." Ariana forced herself to speak. Did anyone suspect what happened to him?" The woman's expression darkened. "Oh, they whispered plenty," she said. "But no one ever proved a thing." "And the sheriff?" She paused. "Well, he stopped looking real fast." Ariana frowned. "Why would he do that?" The woman's voice dropped low. Her eyes hardened. "Because everyone in Hollow Creek knows one thing." Ariana turned toward her, heart pounding. The woman pointed to the missing posters. "All of them, the disappearances, they all have one thing in common." Ariana's breath quickened. "What?" The woman took a step back. Her voice fell to a trembling whisper. "They were all last seen near that house." Silence crashed between them. Ariana couldn't breathe. "My grandmother's house," she whispered. The woman nodded. "Your grandmother's house," she repeated. "Or the woods behind it, or the road leading to it, or the path going by it. Doesn't matter the angle, doesn't matter the year, it all traces back to that place." Ariana instinctively stepped away from the wall of posters. "No," she muttered. "That can't be right. My grandmother, she wouldn't." The woman cut her off. "You should have stayed away, Ariana." Ariana's heart thudded painfully. "Why?" she whispered. The woman slowly leaned in, her voice barely audible. "Because that house eats people." The unwelcome warning. Ariana staggered back, her pulse roaring in her ears. "That's ridiculous," she snapped, more desperately than confidently. "It's a house. Just a house. And that boy, Evan, he said my grandmother locked him up. He's still alive." She stopped. Too late. The woman's face drained of color. "You spoke to him?" Ariana froze. Wait, you know him? She asked. The woman's voice cracked. No one who speaks to that boy survives long. Cold dread coiled around Ariana like chains. What do you mean? She whispered. The woman didn't answer. Instead, she stepped closer and gripped Ariana's wrist with surprising force. Listen to me carefully, the woman said. Whatever is in that basement, leave it be. Don't open anything. Don't move anything. Don't help anyone calling from behind walls. Ariana swallowed hard. Her palms were sweating. I don't understand. You don't need to, the woman said. You just need to run. Ariana yanked her wrist away. Run from what? The woman's eyes glistened with something between terror and pity. From the same thing your grandmother tried to lock away. The message in the snow. Ariana stumbled out of the store, breathing hard, her thoughts spinning wildly. She walked toward her car, trying to steady herself. The cold air bit at her cheeks. Snowflakes drifted down. She dug her keys out of her pocket and froze. Something was written on the car's windshield in the thin layer of snow. Finger-drawn letters. Shaky. Uneven. Fresh. Don't let him out. Ariana's heart convulsed. She spun around, scanning the street. No one. No movement. Only the cold, quiet town watching her. Her breath fogged in the air as she whispered. What is he? The thing that watches. Ariana drove back to the house with her fingers gripping the steering wheel so tight her knuckles were bone white. Every word the storekeeper had whispered clung to her like ice. That house eats people. Don't help anyone calling from behind walls. Run. But she couldn't run. Not yet. Not when someone, a living person, might be trapped in her basement. Or something pretending to be one. The snow was falling harder now, coating the cracked road, swallowing the world in white silence. The trees lining the long driveway to the house leaned like dark silhouettes, bowing toward her. As Ariana pulled up, the house loomed, tall, solemn, and watchful. She swallowed hard. For the first time, it didn't look abandoned. It looked aware. Back inside. The door creaked as she entered. A rush of cold greeted her like a breath from something ancient that lived in the walls. She closed the door behind her, not because it made her feel safer, but because she felt as if something wanted in. Her boots left little pools of melted snow across the wooden floor as she walked toward the living room. The lantern sat on the table where she left it. The house seemed still. Too still. She pulled out the folded note she found behind the picture frame, her grandmother's handwriting shaky, desperate. If it speaks your name, do not respond. Never open the hidden door in the basement. Ariana pressed her palm against her forehead. I'm losing it, she muttered. I'm seriously losing it. That's when she heard movement. Not footsteps. Something subtler. A slow, dragging sound coming from overhead. Her breath caught in her throat. The attic. There shouldn't be anyone up there. There couldn't be anyone up there. She forced herself to move down the hall and stare up at the square attic hatch in the ceiling. Another sound. A soft thump. Then a low, muffled scrape, like fingernails dragging across floorboards. Ariana backed away. Nope, not dealing with that today. She turned. And nearly screamed. The living room door, which she had left open, was now closed. Not completely. Just enough to leave a small shadowed crack. Someone had pushed it. Slowly. Deliberately. Her lungs froze. Ariana took one step backward. The house seemed to hold its breath. Then. Tap. 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 3 soft knocks from behind the living room door. She gasped, stumbling away. No, she whispered. Not again, no. The door hinge groaned. Something on the other side pushed. Ariana. The whisper drifted through the crack, slow, drawn out, as though the voice was tasting her name. Her veins turned to ice. This wasn't the voice from the basement. This one was lower. Older. Hungrier. She bolted toward the kitchen, slipping on the floor, fumbling for the drawer with the emergency flashlight. The whispering followed. Ari, come back. Her hands shook violently as she dug through the drawer, knocking utensils aside. She found the flashlight, clicked it on. The beam flickered, then steadied. She turned around. The living room door was fully open now. Nothing stood behind it. But the air was colder. Heavier. Thicker. Ariana stepped backward toward the kitchen archway. The flashlight dimmed. Once. Twice. Then its beam stretched across the floor and landed on something only visible for a split second. A long shadow moving across the wall. But nothing in the room cast it. Ariana's blood ran cold. She backed away until she hit the counter. Then the flashlight went completely out. Darkness swallowed everything. Ariana, the whisper slithered around her. She squeezed her eyes shut. Please, she whispered to no one. Stop. Silence fell. Then something moved behind her. A faint rustle, like fabric brushing wood. Her heart nearly burst. She forced her legs to move, running blindly toward the hallway, slamming her shoulder against the wall, clutching the flashlight like a weapon. She reached the staircase leading down to the basement. The house groaned again. This time, it sounded like a warning. The voice in the dark. Ariana pressed her back to the basement door, chest heaving. Then she heard it. Not from the walls. Not from the attic. Not from the living room. But from downstairs, behind the steel door. Hello, the voice whispered, weak, trembling. Evan. But now, it sounded worse. Sick. Fading. Are you still there? He called softly. Please. I heard something upstairs. I thought maybe something hurt you. Ariana fought for air. He sounded human. He sounded terrified. But so had the thing whispering her name upstairs. She gripped the basement key. If Evan really was trapped, she couldn't leave him to die. But if he wasn't? The storekeeper's warning echoed. No one who speaks to that boy survives long. Ariana swallowed hard. Are you hurt? She asked through the basement door, careful not to step inside. There was a pause. Then. Not yet. Her chest tightened. Okay, she said shakily. I'll get something to break the chains. Just stay calm. A soft sniffle drifted up the stairs. Thank you, Evan whispered. I knew someone would come. I knew someone would hear me. His voice was so small. So fragile. But something about that fragility felt off. Ariana shut her eyes. I'll be back, she whispered. She turned to leave. Ariana? She froze. Her pulse stopped. She hadn't told him she left the house. She hadn't told him she'd spoken to people in town. She hadn't said anything about where she was going. Yet his voice sounded different now. More alert. More aware. Yes, she whispered warily. Another pause. Then, softly. Be careful upstairs. It doesn't like when people try to leave. Ariana felt the floor tilt beneath her. What doesn't? A loud crash from the attic cut her off. Something heavy had fallen. Then. Slow crawling footsteps. Moving toward the stairwell. Ariana didn't look. She bolted down the hall, slammed into the guest bedroom, and locked the door behind her. Her breath shook violently. Whatever was in the attic was now coming down. Crawling. Slow. Intentional. Ariana pressed a hand over her mouth to stifle a sob. Then she heard Evan again, voice muffled through the floorboards. Don't worry, he whispered. It only wants to watch you tonight. Ariana felt the world twist. Because his voice wasn't scared anymore. The scratches in the walls. The night after the hallway lights flickered and the shadow rushed behind the door, I barely slept at all. Every creak of the house felt louder. Every shift of the wind sounded like breathing. Every second reminded me that something, or someone, was inside my home, unseen yet strangely aware of me. By 3:18 a.m., I gave up on rest altogether. Wrapped in a blanket, I sat at the foot of my bed, staring at the door like it might suddenly fly open. The silence pressed down on me like a weight, broken only by the rhythmic ticking of the old clock on my wall. Tick. 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 I don't know why, but that sound felt wrong. As if the clock was counting down to something I didn't understand. The sound behind the wall. At exactly 3:41 a.m., I heard it. A faint scratching. Not from the door. Not from the window. From the wall. Slow. Deliberate. Like fingernails dragging from the inside. My breath froze midair. I pressed my ear to the drywall. The noise continued, soft, scraping strokes that vibrated through the surface. Scratch. 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 I jerked back, clutching my blanket as if it could protect me. What the hell, I whispered. Nothing in the wall should be moving. Nothing should be alive in there. But the sound persisted, now accompanied by something else. A whisper. Or breath. Or words. I strained to listen. Help. The voice was faint, muffled, as though a person was speaking through layers of insulation. Please. I stumbled back, pulse pounding in my ears. But I wasn't hallucinating. I wasn't dreaming. Someone was behind the wall. The room I never opened. My house was old enough that strange architecture wasn't surprising. But hearing an actual voice from inside the structure? That was something else entirely. I grabbed my phone flashlight and stepped into the hallway. The house was freezing, colder than it had been all week. Every breath floated as a faint mist. The scratching moved, shifting toward the guest room at the far end. I followed. Each step felt heavier. That room. I hadn't opened it in months. Not since I moved in. The former owner had left it locked, claiming the door was jammed and the room wasn't worth using. I believed it then. Now I felt stupid for not questioning it. The scratching was louder, more aggressive. Scrape. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Then it stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. I stood in front of the guest room door, heart thundering. I touched the knob. Frozen cold. Not normal cold, ice cold. The metal burned my skin. What's inside you? I whispered. As if answering me, a soft thump sounded from behind the door. Then a gasp. A voice, choked, trembling. She's coming, run. My spine turned to fire. She? Who the hell was she? I fumbled for the keyring I had never used. The lock clicked in a slow, stubborn way, as though resisting me. I pushed the door open. The room revealed. I expected dusty floors. Maybe broken furniture. Cobwebs. Or nothing at all. Instead, I found a room I didn't recognize. The walls were smeared with strange markings, symbols scratched deep into the plaster. The air smelled like damp earth and something metallic. A single wooden chair lay broken on its side. And on the far wall, partially hidden behind peeling wallpaper. A sealed square panel. A hidden door inside the room. My skin crawled. The scratching had come from there. I approached it slowly, flashlight trembling in my hand. The wallpaper had been torn in desperate, frantic motions, as if someone trapped behind the panel had clawed at it, trying to get out. My breath hitched. Something brushed the inside of the panel. A whisper. Don't trust the woman in the red shoes. Suddenly. A loud crash erupted somewhere downstairs. A heavy, violent slam, like the front door had been hit with enormous force. I jumped back from the panel, adrenaline flooding my veins. Whatever was inside the wall. Whatever was warning me. It wasn't the only thing in the house. Someone else was here. Someone moving. Someone strong enough to rattle the entire floor. The voice whispered desperately. She knows you heard us, run. Run. And then. Footsteps. Downstairs. Slow. Coming up the steps. Not rushed. Not panicked. Measured. Confident. As if whoever it was, already knew exactly where I stood. The shadow on the stairs. I killed my flashlight instantly. The hallway outside the room dimmed. The footsteps grew louder. Closer. Soft thuds against the old wood. My heart hammered so hard I felt dizzy. I peeked through the crack in the guest room door. A shadow stretched across the steps, long and distorted under the dim orange glow of the stairway light. Someone was climbing toward me. Someone moving as though they lived here. Step. 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 The fear hit me so hard I staggered back against the hidden panel. A whisper came through instantly. Do not let her find you alone. The footsteps paused. Whoever was out there had stopped directly in front of the door. Silence. Then. A woman's voice. Calm. Sweet. Almost familiar. Are you awake? My body froze. I didn't recognize the voice. I shouldn't recognize the voice. Yet something about it felt like a memory I had forgotten. A soft chuckle drifted through the crack. You shouldn't open rooms that don't belong to you. My blood ran ice cold. I hadn't made a sound. I hadn't turned on a light. I hadn't. How did she know what I was doing? The whispers behind the wall became frantic. She sees through the house, leave while she's not inside her body. The woman's voice outside sharpened. Almost as if she'd heard the whisper. That room is off limits, she said softly. For your own good. Slowly. The doorknob began to turn from the outside. My breath stopped altogether. The hidden panel behind me vibrated, someone pounding on it from within. She's opening it, hide. Hide. The doorknob clicked fully. The guest room door swung open. And the woman stepped inside.